Hello, Yavapai County. My name is David McAtee. I'm the Yavapai County Public Information Officer, and today I'm here with Jeff Newnum, who is with the Sheriff's Office, and he is a captain in charge of the Detention Services Division.
Right.
So, Jeff, we're here at what is quickly becoming the Justice Center. It's
looks
kind
great.
of neat to see that happen.
It is.
You know, in our conversations about this new Justice Center, we hear a lot of words bantered about. Can you tell us the difference between a jail and a prison?
Right. So the difference between a jail and a prison, at any time that you have somebody in your community that's going to be arrested for a criminal act, whether it be a misdemeanor or felony, they get brought to a jail. That's their first initial intake. And so that's really the pre-adjudication stage. So as you're waiting for your day in court, as you're waiting to go through trial, you're going to be housed in a jail if you cannot afford a bond. You'll be going through trial. That trial phase, you'll be staying in the jail. Now, once that is adjudicated, and no matter what it is, it could be anything from a DUI to first-degree murder. We have numerous people in our jail today that are waiting trial on first-degree murder. So we have very serious felonies in the Camp Verde Detention Center. In fact, a lot of people are surprised to learn that 97% of our inmate population are in jail currently on serious felony charges. It's not your drug charge or whatnot. But that's the difference between a jail. So the jail is pre-adjudication, unless you're a misdemeanor. Now, a judge can sentence you to less than a year in jail if you're convicted of a misdemeanor. But any felony, once you're found guilty, if you're found guilty, then you'll get sentenced by the judge. Then that's when you go to a prison. That's what prisons are for. It's for you to serve your time. That's your sentencing on a felony charge. It has to be a felony charge, and then you go to the Department of Correction.
So then, what is our current situation in Camp Verde?
So the current jail that we have in Camp Verde, that's where our main housing is. So the jail here in Prescott on Gurley Street is just an intake facility, but it's not what we call a full intake facility. It doesn't have medical, we can't feed, it has no fire suppression system, it does not meet the code required, to be an actual jail. So all we do is it's an intake, and it's really primarily a holding for the courts during the day, because you can't take 80 inmates down to the courthouse on the plaza. So during the day, really, that's where the inmates stay until their hearing. The Camp Verde facility right now, that's a 644 bed facility. However, what a lot of people don't realize is even though I have 644 beds, there's something called classification that we have to be aware of. Classification is by law, I have to be able to separate male and females. I have to be able to separate sex offenders from non-sex offenders, violent from non-violent. Certain gangs can't mix, and so you have to have the ability to move inmates around. So if you have an inmate that gets into a fight, those two inmates have to be separated. So that's for the safety and security of the inmate population. So classification is an important piece. And really the model across the country is you want to have 20% of your bed space open so you can move the inmates around and classify accordingly. A lot of people don't realize that right now, today for instance, we'll have 40 inmates or more that are what's called house alone. That they're either so violent or people want to harm them that we have to house them by themselves. Well, each cell has 2 beds. So if I have 40 inmates that are housed alone because they're so violent to the inmate population, or we have to protect them from the inmate population, that's 80 beds for just those 40 inmates.
So it sounds like your jail is pretty full.
It's full today. We're over capacity.
So can you talk about what the sheriff has done to keep that population down? The sheriff and his team has done.
Yeah, so the Reach Out initiative has been probably the biggest piece that we've done. We've been able, through connecting inmates to care upon their release, and I know you're going to probably cover Reach Out with some other entities. The Reach Out initiative has been huge, but by building this in 2016 and looking at partnering with the mental health professionals, the primary care professionals, the substance abuse, transitional housing, vocational rehab, any area that we feel an inmate might be at risk from reoffending, we've built partnerships in order to link that inmate and do a warm handoff and connect them to that care when they're upon their release, which has helped lower the recidivism rate. So we went from about 39% reoffend rate here in Yavapai County to now we're enjoying since 2018, March of 2018 to today, 16%. That has reduced our jail population. That has reduced our intakes by 2,000 intakes a year from March 8, 2018 to today. So we've been able to our daily population has decreased by about 150 to 200 inmates approximately per day. So if I'm at 514 inmates, which I am today, that's over our operational capacity with classification. If I did not have the diversion programs like the Reach Out Initiative and the pre-arrest diversion, so the mobile crisis for patrol for every agency that responds to a call, they're able to call the mobile crisis to come and divert them to jail. If we did not have those programs, I would be at 200 inmates. I'd be over at 700 inmates right now in Camp Verde, which is not attainable. I mean, it's just not feasible. That makes the inmate population unsafe. That makes the staffing, the officers unsafe. And that's really what this facility is about, is not only to address the overcrowding, for the jail, but to have that mental health piece, to have the courts piece, to have them together. That is really the co-location of the courts and the connection center for the mental health piece. That's what we're trying to do, because that makes Yavapai County safer. That lowers the recidivism rate to the point where now those people that would have reoffended and committed new criminal acts are not victimizing citizens here in Yavapai County. It also helps keep your patrol resources, your officers, in their communities. Right now here in Prescott and Chino, Prescott Valley, the rural areas, the deputies in Wickenburg and Baghdad and Ashfork, the DPS officers all over the western part of Yavapai County, they have to take those inmates, those people that they arrest if they're violent or have a medical issue, all the way to Camp Verde. And I've heard from lieutenants at Prescott PD, for instance, that say every time that they have to make an arrest like that, it's taking their officers off the street for at least 5 hours, that officer or two officers, because it's at least an hour drive one way to Camp Verde. They have to go through a booking process that takes them at least an hour. They have to come back. That doesn't even include the investigative part. So just to do the investigation before you decide to make an arrest is, let's say, an hour, and then they have to write a report. So you're taking your resources off the street simply because we want to locate the jail in a rural area. Well, that's good because it might be isolated, but you're forcing your resources in your community now to travel. And that's not beneficial to anybody.
So would you say this is critical? This is necessary at this time?
This is absolutely critical. It's been critical, and that's why the Sheriff Masher and his predecessors have been fighting this battle and trying to educate the community and going to the board, and the board agrees, and we've been on this for almost 2 decades. That's why we got this land in the first place. In the early 2000s, we traded the city of Prescott, and the city of Prescott knew we wanted this land for a justice center, and they wanted the rodeo grounds. You have certain politicians that were involved in those decision-making processes back then that are now against it because now they're working for the county. And this is absolutely critical. If we don't build this with the increase of the population, and this is what I think a lot of people, it's lost on them a little bit. It certainly was for me until I got educated. The population of Yavapai County increases. We found out during the Chin study that was in 2016, Karen Chin and her organization showed that the population increases 10% a year in Yavapai County. Our jail population also increases 10% a year, and there was that correlation that she was able to show us, and that we have to be ready for that. But we're already at capacity. So the more people that move into Yavapai County, they're going to want to live in communities that are safe. If I don't have the ability to house inmates in a jail that is already overcrowded, to me, those inmates are going to be released back into the community because we don't have the ability to house them. Currently, I can only house 0.2% of the population in Yavapai County. That doesn't meet the standard that you would see across the nation. So just think about that as a resident, especially in the Quad City area where there is not a full-time jail. I can only house less than 1% of the community in Yavapai County as it continues to grow. This is absolutely critical. We have to do something for the future. And this won't even be open for another 3 to 4 years probably. You know, so what's the population going to be in 4 years from now?
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate your time today. It's obvious you're very passionate about this, and hopefully we'll get this done quicker than 3 years, but I appreciate it. So thank you, Yavapai County, for listening, and we'll see you next time.